The show rotates around the existence of Beam. Shoesmith, a contract killer for employee who adjusts his crimes with his commitments to loved ones he has. A 7-year-old little girl Brittany, and his ex Jacinta Ray is additionally the guardian of his wiped-out sibling Bruce. Toward the beginning of the episode, Ray has a meeting with his supervisor Freddy's partner, Maddie. He questions Maddie why he didn't put the bet on Freddy's betting. At first the person attempts to lie and wriggle right out of the circumstance. However, at the point when Ray continues to demand, he concedes his slip-up. Subsequently, Ray educates him an illustration by driving him over the steps. Later, Ray meets Freddy at a dance club to gather his installment. His manager doesn't have the cash right now, potentially, since he lost it at betting, so Freddy lets Ray know that he can gather 10 grand from somebody who owes him an obligation. Furthermore, save it for himself. Our legend concurs, yet tells his manager that he will require an additional terrific for assisting him with gathering the obligation. Freddy obliges and sends one of his group, Scratch, to help Ray in gathering the obligation. In the following scene, Ray and Scratch drive to a spot called Ashfield to find the debt holder, who goes by the name Terry. At first, Scratch beats Terry hard-heartedly. However, the old person declines to pay and claims that he doesn't have any cash. He says that he can get it inside 7 days. However, Ray thinks about another way to frighten unfortunate Terry. He requests Terry's wallet and sees the old person's loved one's photograph. He then, at that point, writes down Terry's location, compromising him by guaranteeing that he will go to his home to clearly manage his family, all things considered. This terrifies Terry, so he vows to return the cash quickly. The following day, Ray is strolling his canine in a recreation area. There he meets a lady named Ollie, who is additionally strolling her canine. They have little talk and both regard each as other appealing. Later, Ray visits his girl, Brittany, who lives with his ex Jacinta. He then drives his child to visit his sibling Bruce. Uncle Bruce is agreeable with Brittany as he frequently ruins her with gifts. One night, as Ray is weary obligation at a club, his closest companion, Gary, appears. The two take part in a private talk, and Gary expresses that while he was watching grown-up films at home, his Russian spouse, Tatiana, learned about the DVD and resents him to save himself. Gary let his significant other know that Ray is the one who claims the port, and shockingly she accepted his falsehoods. Gary then, at that point, asks Ray to come to his home and affirm his story to Tatiana, albeit reluctant right away. Our legend in the end concurs. In the following scene, Ray comes to his closest companion's house and meets Tatiana. He reluctantly confesses to her that the pornography DVD has a place with him. Tatiana reproaches Ray, furthermore, offers back the pornography to him. Later, Ray tosses the DVD in the garbage bin. However, Gary gets it and brings it back home. This is obviously without his significant other's notification. The next day, when Ray is hanging out with his girl, Brittany, on the road, 2 young men find her. The young men are exceptionally discourteous to Ray and use cuss words. After Ray takes his daughter back to the vehicle, he sees those 2 young men again, who are currently visiting in the city. Ray advises Brittany to wait in the vehicle, guaranteeing that he will get some papers. However, rather he goes straight over to those 2 young men and beats one of them while different oddities out, and figures out how to take off. This activity, anyway, is seen by a lady while chasing after the person who took off. Ray goes over partner at a grocery store, and that's what figures out she is a paramedic. This time Ray takes the opportunity to request her number sliced to the following scene. An entrepreneur, Luke Henson, completes the process of running and returns to his vehicle. Abruptly, Ray appears and powers him to get into the storage compartment of his vehicle. Ray then, at that point, takes Luke to the woodland and tells him to dig an opening while Luke is doing as such. Ray kills him without even a moment's pause and covers him in a similar opening which had been dug by Luke one morning when they're at home. Brittany inquired as to whether St. Nick Claus is genuine. Ray can't mislead his girl, so he says that St. Nick Claus is totally counterfeit after Brittany gets some information about Jesus, Easter Rabbit and Tooth Pixie. Ray doesn't need to make his daughters extremely upset, so he tells her that unicorns are genuine. He then makes up a tale about when he headed to the Blue Mountains and saw a unicorn there before it took off later. A few police come to Ray's home and bring him to meet at court for beating the two young fellows recently. Thus he is told to go to outrage the executives. Treatment that evening. Ray goes to Freddy's club, the Playhouse. Freddy illuminates him that Luke isn't the person they're expected to kill. This causes Ray to feel extremely awful about what he did, so he furiously advises his supervisor to give him the right name next time. Slice to the following scene. Ray goes on an exquisite date with Ollie. They get to know one another and share their past. Ollie makes reference to her bombed marriage at 21. What's more, Ray remarks that she avoided the slug. The two end their date at Ray's place where they get personal with each other. The next day, Ray abruptly gets a call from the medical clinic. It turns out that Gary is right now in a state of unconsciousness. Furthermore, he shows up at the medical clinic. Beam solaces Tatiana and asks Gary's brother by marriage, Vasily, what happened. The letter uncovers that it was a weapon bargain turned out badly as per him while he and Gary were leading their unlawful business. A few men intruded on their meeting, slammed Gary in the head and ran away with every one of the weapons. As Ray pays attention to this, he sees a great deal of things that simply don't seem okay. For example, why the looters didn't beat Vasily and why his knuckles have no injuries regardless of office asserting that he beat up one of the burglars that evening. Ray comes to Vasily's home, beats him and powers him to come clean. The last option denies any bad behaviors from the beginning, yet when Ray takes steps to kill him, he at long last talks up. He uncovers that he and his partner Hassam expressed Gary up. However, they didn't expect that the looters would slam him. This gravely hearing this, a maddened Beam powers Vasily to call Hassam. When the fellow shows up, Ray holds him at gunpoint. Out of dread, Hassan affirms reality that the other looters beat Gary. Next up, our legend follows Hassam's data about the looters and goes after them. He kills two of the men liable for beating Gary. The following day, Gary awakens from his unconsciousness and much appreciated Ray for dealing with him. Later, Beam visits his ex's place to spend some time with his girl there. Jacinta upbraids Ray for telling Brittany that Jesus isn't genuine, particularly when she and her new spouse have chosen to raise Brittany as a Christian. In reaction, Ray says that he was telling reality and that he doesn't need his kid to have confidence in stories prior to driving off. After this, Ray goes to the court requested outrage the board treatment meeting. The treatment is in a manner acceptable for him, since the option is jail. Anyway, his most memorable gathering doesn't go very well. The room is loaded up with folks beating their spouses and children, which doesn't match Ray's personality. Subsequently, he needs to talk since he doesn't simply have outrage issues, however drive control. At the point when he lets the gathering know that he doesn't have a place in this room brimming with spouse and youngsters blenders, it gets on the nerves of one more participant. This prompts Ray nearly getting into a battle with a man. Be that as it may, he's at last come by the specialist. Sadly, this isn't Ray's, as it were, Issue of the day, his manager, Freddie, illuminates him that the folks he slammed for putting Gary in a state of extreme lethargy had a place with a team run by his child in regulation sibling, Davros Freddie. Then demands Ray plunk down with Davos, too. Smooth the waters. The following day, Vasily, while on drugs, breaks into Gary's home to deny the items in his protected. Gary, who has recently gotten back from the emergency clinic, figures out how to send a SOS message to Beam, who is out shopping with Ollie. Gary gets some time by giving a few reasons, for example, not knowing the blend for the safe. Fortunately, Ray acts the hero and expeditiously manages Vasily. The Russian is knocked off the steps, and during this time, Gary figures out how to grab away his firearm. Gary then, at that point, apparently pops a projectile in Vasily's skull. Simultaneously, Tatiana gets back, sending the two companions into a condition of frenzy. Gary attempts to cut the body into pieces with the goal that it tends to be simpler for them to dump it, while Ray attempts to conceal the occurrence from Tatiana. Sadly, for Gary, it is uncovered that the slug had skipped off Vasily's skull, causing it to appear as though he was dead. In any case, as a general rule, he was just taken out. So when Ray attempts to hack Vasily up, the last option awakens and gets as far away as possible. After Gary makes sense of what Vasily attempted to do to him, Tatiana pursues him out in a rage. Meanwhile, Ray simply leaves, since he lacks opportunity and energy to bargain with their privately run companies. In spite of the fact that Ray has a hoodlum foundation, he has a piece of a delicate side, particularly in respect to his girl, Brittany. He frequently goes to her games, invests energy with her, and brings her over to his siblings' home, so she knows where she comes from. He even acquaints her with his new sweetheart partner. That evening, Ray at last has a plunk down with Davros, Freddie's relative.